To introduce you to the ambassador, first of all, could I ask by raise of hand how many of you have been to Korea? Looks like a little over half. How many of you speak Korean? Okay, how many of you are of part or full Korean ancestry? You see? So that's who we are. We're happy to have you here. Ambassador Lee is a career diplomat, and when I found that I had the opportunity to introduce him, I was a little bit concerned because the diplomats that I've introduced before, the ambassadors before, have been friends of mine that I've known through the academic world. They've been political science professors who became diplomats. And I didn't know how this career diplomat was going to fit my schedule. And it turns out that not only are my fears gone, but he's from the same hometown that I'm from. My adopted hometown in Korea is where I've taken study abroad groups. It's a town called Yangdong, just outside of Gyeongju. And that's his hometown. And I've lived in the house of his ancestors. So we have an immediate bond. And so I'm introducing you today not just an ambassador, but a man who I consider a new friend of mine. He has served in Liberia, the Philippines, Austria, Yugoslavia, and Belgium, and has been the Director General of the International Trade Bureau at the Ministry and of the Korea Peninsula Energy Development Organization. He's also been Deputy Minister for Foreign Affairs and was Ambassador to Israel before Ambassador to the United States. A man well qualified and a man who I'm honored to introduce to you, His Excellency Ambassador Lee Tae-sik.
Thank you very much, Professor Peterson, for your kind introduction about myself. Yes, you said rightly that we belong to the same hometown in Korea. And as a matter of fact, he is 1 year younger than I am. So we have some cultural affinity between us. But more than anything else, I'm very pleased that he is in love of Korea. And also, I'm deeply impressed today that all of you are very closely attached to Korea, one way or another. You have strong sense of affinity and understanding, and deeply rooted friendship and understanding. That is something remarkable that I notice here today. And also, Professor Linger, thank you very much for your kindness to allow me to speak here, and also distinguished faculty members and students. You know, I speak before the students in different universities on U.S.-Korea relationship, but never, ever I have been encountered with such a large audience and student community like here in your great university, BYU. You have quite a great alumni working in Washington, D.C., one of whom is, of course, Senator Hatch. And also, you have such a wonderful personality working as chairman of House Subcommittee on East Asia, Annie Palleomabaenga. So, Orrin Hatch, the senator, and this Palleomabaenga, Mr. Palleomabaenga, they are the two most important personalities graduated from your great university. I was told that you are the largest private university or undergraduate university in the United States to have such a large student community in the number of 30,000. That's amazing. But again, I'm very pleased here to be with you. And I will talk about our two countries' relationship on the basis of my prepared text. And after that, I will take some of your questions as much as I can. So allow me just to go through with my prepared text. I very much appreciate the invitation to visit BYU and to meet with so many of your accomplished administrators, faculty, and students. One of the many interesting things I have learned today is that owing to BYU's unparalleled foreign language program, I could choose to speak to you in any one of about 110 languages, and some folks on this campus would understand me. That was eloquently demonstrated by those who are well immersed in Korean language. Thank you very much for your keen interest. But I think I better stick to English. For my topic today, I'd like to discuss one of the most successful alliances in world history. It's not an overstatement, the Korea-US relationship. There are three questions I am often asked. The first one that seems to surface periodically, just as sure as the robins return in spring, is the question of the state of the Korea-US alliance. Is it still strong and durable, or are our best days behind us, as some argue? The second key issue, the most challenging and certainly the one that generates the most press, is the North Korean nuclear issue. Are we finally on a path to resolving this difficult problem? The third topic, which is not brought up as often, but which I want to discuss because of its significance for our overall relationship, and that is, what is the status of the Korea-US Free Trade Agreement? So I like to address these three key questions, and then I will be happy to take some of your questions, as I have stated before. First, regarding the Korea-US relationship, in spite of the occasional ripples and difficulties, I think the consensus is pretty clear, and that is that Korea and the United States share a long-time successful alliance grounded in common values such as democracy, market economy, and respect for human rights. For the past half-century, this alliance has provided strong security for the Korean Peninsula and stability in the region. At the same time, U.S. economic assistance and investment have helped spur Korea's rise from dependence and poverty to a world-class economic power. Accordingly, as Korea has grown in economic and political stature, our bilateral relationship has become more reciprocal and balanced. For example, today, Korea is actively contributing to coalition efforts for peace and security in Iraq and Afghanistan, while also participating in the broader international effort in the war on terror. In this regard, Korea remains one of the few countries in the world to stand with the United States in all the major conflicts of the past half-century. In view of this growing parity, President Roh Moo-hyun and President Bush made the determination that Korea and the United States should expand our ties into a more comprehensive, dynamic, and mutually beneficial partnership. In the security realm, we have undertaken some key steps to modernize the alliance and improve our readiness on such complex issues as the relocation and the realignment of U.S. forces in Korea, strategic flexibility, as we call it, wartime operational control, as you would understand what this means, and burden sharing of the alliance. We have made good progress and significant progress, and our cooperation is continuing. And therefore, it is fair to say, regardless what you have heard about the shape of our two countries' military alliance partnership, we are in good shape. We are moving forward in the right direction. As I have just enumerated a couple of important issues involving our two countries' military partnership. First, sometimes back in the year 2003, we were told for the first time that U.S. troops in Korea, in the number of 37,000, will be drawn down by a third immediately. Then it was shocking to us when we are confronted with North Korean threat. The U.S. is going to withdraw a third of its troops or ground troops in Korea immediately. So we talked a lot on this, and eventually the agreement was that this troop withdrawal or troop drawdowns will be done in a phased manner over a certain years. So by the end of this year, perhaps sometimes in the middle of next year, your troops will be drawn down by a third in Korea, from 37,000 to 25,000. And also your troops, which have been deployed along the demilitarized zone, as we call it, DMZ, these troops, all of these troops, U.S. troops, ground troops, will be removed from the scene and relocated somewhere in the southern part of the country. So we are working on that. The new base will be Osan and Pyeongtaek area, which is somewhat in the southwestern part of the country. So two most important and significant changes have taken place in the shape of U.S. troop presence in Korea. And we have to accommodate the need, and yet we have to come up with a new arrangement to accommodate U.S. need, but at the same time to meet the requirement of defending Korea from any military threat from North Korea. That's what we have been doing. So that's why I say that our two countries' military alliance partnership has been successfully overcoming all difficult issues of past several years. And we are moving forward in the right direction, even when it comes to this wartime operational control. This has been an issue for our two countries. Currently, we have this CFC command structure, Combined Forces Command, which is headed by the U.S. four-star general. So if anything happens in Korea, under this plan, U.S. four-star general is going to lead our combined defending forces. In several years' time, we are going to change this structure so that, as I have told you, since U.S. troops are withdrawing from the demilitarized zone, and then we, the South Korean troops, will fill in, and we will be at the forefront. Therefore, if anything goes wrong, then who is going to command these troops at the forefront of the battle line? So that is why we have talked about this issue, and that is why our two countries have agreed that in a timely manner, perhaps by the year 2012, we are going to come up with a new cooperative relationship as far as this command structure is concerned. And here again, Koreans are going to take the leading role in defending the country while the U.S. is supporting us. That is the new structure. That is the new development. And this is an evolution. And therefore, again, I say why our alliance partnership is moving rather in the right direction, and we are evolving. On the political front, Korea and the U.S. have become strategic partners in global affairs. In their summit of November 2005, President Roh Moo-hyun and President George Bush laid out a vision for a future-oriented, comprehensive, and dynamic partnership, strengthened by the launching of a strategic dialogue at the foreign minister level. This strategic consultation for allied partnership, as it is formally known, was a milestone in the maturity of Korea-U.S. relations. It institutionalized strategic bilateral discussions that concern not only the Korean Peninsula, but regional and international security matters as well. In this context, our two nations are working together on such vital global issues as terrorism, WMD proliferation, human rights, poverty, and the environment. Finally, on the economic front, we have embarked on perhaps our most ambitious project of all, and that is negotiations on a Korea-US free trade agreement, and I will fill you in on these developments in a moment. Meanwhile, the most pressing issue we face is the North Korean nuclear problem. As you know, this is not a new issue. Rather, it has concerned us for the better part of 2 decades. But what I think is different now, particularly in the wake of North Korea's disregard for world opinion in proceeding with their nuclear test last October, is that we are bringing to bear on this problem a new degree of international unity. This consensus has translated into a shared determination to resolve this problem quickly and conclusively and once and for all. All the major Pacific powers, including Pyongyang's longtime patrons China and Russia, have moved peaceful denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula to the top of their agendas. Furthermore, the participants in the six-party talks are buttressed by a pair of stiff United Nations resolutions passed unanimously in the latter half of past year. There can be no ambiguity in the message to North Korea, and that is we are looking for concrete progress in resolving this issue sooner than later. Beyond this clear message, we also have a comprehensive plan. The basis for this plan is the joint statement of September 19th, 2005, in which North Korea agreed to abandon its nuclear weapons and related programs in return for economic, diplomatic, and political benefits. After more than a year's hiatus, the talks resumed briefly in December last year, and then again last month in Beijing. As a result of the agreement forged among the six parties on February 13th this year, we are now taking the initial steps to implement this plan. As a matter of fact, at this very moment, our six-party delegations are meeting again in Beijing to come up with a new concrete steps to implement the September 19 joint statement as well as February 13th implementation agreement. According to the agreement, within 60 days, North Korea consented to shut down and seal for the ultimate purpose of abandonment its Yongbyon nuclear facilities. It has also invited back IAEA inspectors and is undertaking discussions on a list of all its nuclear programs. The other five parties are taking corresponding measures, including the provision of emergency energy assistance equivalent to 50,000 metric tons of heavy fuel oil, and the start of U.S. DPRK and Japan DPRK bilateral talks on the normalization of relationship. Simultaneously, 5 working groups have formed to address specific aspects of this agreement. I could go into further detail on all the different consultations taking place in venues from New York and Washington to Beijing and Hanoi, but with all these brackets, it may be easier if you just think of it as a sort of diplomatic version of March Madness. As I have said, the good news is that on this very day, our 6-party participants have reconvened their meeting in Beijing. where the results of the various working groups will be reported back to the head delegates of the talks. In short, we are firmly in the action phase of the agreements rather than staying in the talking phase, pursuing the ultimate objective of attaining permanent peace on the Korean Peninsula. To this end, we must continue to demonstrate to North Korea that a better path will be open to the country if it starts sincerely implementing the joint statement and subsequent Beijing agreement. Conversely, we also must emphasize that there will be a stronger reaction from the international community if the North refuses to take this path and opts for an alternative route. This two-pronged approach, based on clear and compelling communication with North Korea and rock-solid cooperation among the other participating countries, is the only reliable and realistic way to bring peace and stability to a nuclear weapons-free Korean Peninsula. And as I said, I think we are all determined to get this done, rather in a timely manner. Turning to the third question, the status of our bilateral economic relationship. It is bigger and more dynamic than ever. As I mentioned, Korea has grown from an impoverished nation to the 10th largest economy in the world as of year 2005. In fact, Koreans can readily identify with the very apt Utah State motto of industry, given our own track record of hard work and perseverance. A global leader in high technology, including semiconductors, telecommunications, automobiles, shipbuilding, you name it. The Korea ranks first in broadband penetration and other areas. At the same time, maintaining high labor and environmental standards. Our bilateral trade with the United States last year surpassed 78 billion US dollars. At the same time, investment between our two countries has not only flourished, but has become a two-way street. While US companies invest $3 to $4 billion annually in Korea, US investment from Korean companies have more than doubled in the last 3 years. For example, Hyundai recently completed a state-of-the-art automotive plant in Montgomery, Alabama. In Texas, Austin, Samsung is in the process of expanding its $1.6 billion DRAM plant. And in Georgia, West Point, Kia company, another automotive company, is constructing a $1.2 billion manufacturing facilities. Ventures like these, which provide thousands of new jobs for American workers, stand as a symbol of the transformation in Korea-US economic ties and of our relationship as a whole. Once we were receiving country, now we are working together as a partner, politically, militarily, and economically. Therefore, as a result of our two economies becoming more compatible and intertwined, last year we launched negotiations on a landmark bilateral free trade agreement. This Korea-US free trade agreement, as we call it, KORAS FTA, will be the largest and most significant free trade agreement since NAFTA for the United States, which is a clear win-win proposition for both our two countries. For both sides, the Korea-US free trade agreement will add a new dimension to the Korea-US alliance. Not only an economic boon, an FTA will also provide significant political and strategic value to both sides by serving as another solid pillar of our relationship. For Korea, enhanced access to the largest and most competitive economy in the world will support our transition to a knowledge-based economy. An FTA will make us more competitive with other regional powers. And as the only country in the region with an FTA with the United States, if it concluded successfully, this would be a catalyst to Korea's goal of becoming regional economic hub. For the United States, it will be the first FTA in Northeast Asia, serving as a springboard to further promote trade in the region and beyond. And it will link the U.S. economy with one of the most vibrant economies in the world, strengthening the already dynamic relationship our two countries share. Korea is the United States' seventh largest trading partner. In turn, the U.S. is Korea's third largest trading partner, having recently slipped behind China and Japan. The FTA, however, is expected to reestablish the United States as Korea's leading trading partner. By eliminating bilateral tariffs and facilitating investment, the Korea-US FTA will pave the way for more US companies to export to and to invest in the dynamic Korean market, thus creating more jobs for Americans. Exports to Korea are expected to increase up to 49%. Our negotiators have completed 8 rounds of talks, and I think there is a very good chance we can finally conclude the negotiations by the end of this month as required by the U.S. law. On both sides, we have a political commitment at the highest levels of the government. In particular, I would also like to mention that we very much appreciate the principled and the strong pre-trade stance of the senior United States Senator from Utah, Senator Orrin Hatch. I am hopeful that the approaching Trade Promotion Authority deadline may actually serve as an impetus rather than a hindrance to completing this pact. So in short, even though we have difficult areas including agriculture, service sectors, automotives, and also trade remedial measures, textiles, IPR, pharmaceuticals, a host of issues are awaiting our final touch. At this very moment, we have just initiated our final discussions or bilateral discussions in Washington, which will be followed by another discussions in Korea. So before the end of this month, we are concluding this agreement. Then this is going to work as a win-win solution. In sum, as Korea has matured, Korea-US relations have advanced toward a healthier, more balanced alliance partnership based on the foundation laid over the past half-century and standing the test of time. Today, we are deeply engaged in consultation and cooperation to meet the challenges of the next half-century. You can think of it like renovating a house. You may need to modernize or expand it, and there is bound to be noise and occasional setbacks in the process. And yet, in the end, you have a place that's more livable and functional for all. Likewise, the Korea-US alliance is not a static one, but a relationship that we continue to restructure and fine-tune to reflect our mutual interests and objectives. So going back to our original questions, if you ask me, based on our past achievements and our current common goals and objectives, we should be pretty well positioned for success in the future. And this is the source of our pride. And therefore, it is not a source of our frustration as some would argue. Some people have stated that our alliance partnership has been in trouble for whatever reason. That might have been true in the past several years. And yet, our two countries' leadership have worked very hard to get it right. And we are on the right track at the moment. As I have given you some glimpse of what we have done in the past. Militarily, we have sorted out all difficult issues involving our two countries' military alliance. And it is fair to say that we are in good shape. If you ask any government officials these days whether our two countries' alliance partnership is in trouble, in turmoil, or we are proceeding rather well these days, you could get the right answer from these people. And also in terms of our joint approach to deal with North Korean issue. That has been some kind of a problematic area because in Korea, you had this left of the center government in the past several years, while here in the US, you have the right of the center government in power. So obviously, there is certain discrepancy in their own perspectives on the world as well as with respect to North Korean issue as a whole. Now, before it is too late, our two countries have worked very hard to be in sync with each other in dealing with North Korean nuclear threat. And that is what's taking place in Beijing and elsewhere. And that is why your ambassador to Korea and your assistant secretaries are working so hard to resolve this nuclear question of North Korea in close coordination with South Korea and others. And I believe we are on the right track. And again, in our economic partnership, we stand tall together with each other. That is why U.S. agreed to launch this negotiation on free trade agreement with Korea, which is not the case with Japan, which is not the case with China, which are the largest economies in Northeast Asia. Only with Korea, U.S. has agreed to launch this negotiation because Korea deserves the attention of United States. So we are working together. We are working very hard to make our alliance partnership militarily, politically, economically a better one. Alliance is not going to stand static. It's going to evolve to reflect each other's interest and purpose, and yet to accommodate evolving interests and changing perspectives for the better. Thank you very much.
The ambassador has agreed to take questions. We've got about 15 minutes left. We know some of you have a 4 o'clock class, so we'll go from 10 till 10 to the hour. Professor Peterson will moderate the questions. Just a reminder, this is being recorded for those who are listening in, aren't able to be there, so we'd invite you, as you ask a question, to please state your name, your major, and where you're from, and Professor Peterson will moderate the next 15 minutes.
Rachel's hand shot up. She gets the first question.
My name is Rachel Harper. I was just wondering if you think Korea would ever open up international adoptions again.
Can you speak a bit?
Oh, sure. I was just wondering if you think Korea would ever open up international adoptions again. I'm a social worker.
넓게 열어준다고 입양하시네.
It's a bit interesting question. If I understood your question correctly, this is about the adaptation?
Adoption of Korean children.
Yes, you know, I know that there are quite a large adoptees community in the States, here as well as elsewhere. And whether this process will proceed as has been the case in the past, there has been some debate on this, and yet we like to take account of the merit of this process. And so more will be done in the future to suit the need of the families and adoptees. And I hope that our adoptees in the U.S. will make their lives a successful one with new parents. And whatever our country can do to make you much more successful citizens of the United States, morally or otherwise, we like to do that. But the process is not going to be stopped. It's going to be proceeded, but on the basis of much more reasonable sort of arrangement, rather than just assigning the adoptees to needed family, but recently voluntary sort of arrangement between the family and adoptees that will be made done. So I can say to you at the moment that we will not hamper the process, but we like to proceed it much more effectively to serve your needs. Thank you.
Next question, in the back.
My name is Kyu Sung Wee. I'm a statistics major. As a Korean, I hope two of my countries, South Korea and North Korea, to be reunified someday. For a reunified nation, can it be a good idea to have a nuclear weapon for economically and militarily being independent?
Reunification is our ultimate goal. And yet, when we are reunited, we do not want to have nuclear weapons. We want to be economically viable and successful country when reunited, but we don't want to have nuclear weapons. For whatever reason, this is not in serving our national interest. This is posing danger to my country. If you are going to have nuclear weapons in Korea, particularly under the current circumstances, North Korea is equipped with nuclear weapons, then there will be chain effect or chain reactions from other countries in the region to be equipped with similar weapons. Therefore, it's not going to serve your own national security. So even after the reunification, we want to be a peaceful country. But one thing, how we are going to ensure our security if we are not going to be equipped with nuclear weapons, our stronger alliance partnership with the United States. Our U.S.-Korea alliance relationship is going to be the backbone of Korea's security and foreign policy. With that, we would be rest assured of our security even without nuclear weapons.
My name is Crystal Carlson. I'm an international relations major. My question goes along with his a little bit. With these talks that are going on with North Korea, part of that is what happens with the nuclear warheads that are being disarmed, or that are supposedly going to be disarmed? What are they planning on doing with the nuclear warheads? Are they going to be, like the material, is it going to stay in North Korea, or are there other countries they're going to take over it?
Yes, there is a suspicion that North Korea must have accumulated quite a significant number of plutonium, which would be good enough to manufacture several bombs. Whether this plutonium is already in the format of nuclear warhead or some other nuclear material, we don't know. But our suspicion is that some of these material must have been translated in some kind of nuclear substance, whatever that may be. And therefore, we are going to address these nuclear problems rather squarely, by which I mean at some point down the road, unless North Korea is going to declare its nuclear inventory, our assistance as well as normalization process between the U.S. and North Korea will not go as intended. And therefore, at some point, we will have moment of truth. At that moment, we will see whether North Korea is abiding by the agreed arrangement or it just make its own excuse to prolong the whole negotiation. But we are not going to be outsmarted by North Korea. We, the international community, combined with the US, South Korea, Japan, China, and Russia, if we are going to be outsmarted or outmaneuvered by North Korea, it's a shame. We will outsmart North Korea. We will outwin North Korea. We will outreach North Korea, and we will be successful. So thank you for your question. That is a critical question, and yet we will have to address that question down the road at some point at an appropriate moment.
Next question. Right up here. Right next to you, right there. Then we'll come up here.
My name is James Bourne, and Korean is actually my minor. During the time that I spent in North Korea, I lived in Gangwon-do for about 7 months. And while there, I noticed a lot of protesting from local farmers against the FTA. How do you think that the FTA will affect jobs for farmers in Korea?
When it comes to this free trade agreement, the most likely protesters will be from the agricultural sector. That's not only in Korea, but elsewhere in the world, even here in the States. So it is not a new story that we are being encountered with stiff protest and opposition from our rural sectors. And yet, we believe that with the FTA, our rural community will become much more competitive and successful in the long run, not in the immediate run. But government will have to come up with a new strategy to deal with this problem of rural sector. If you are going to leave the problems facing the rural community undone, then who is going to take care of and when? We simply postpone the serious problems for our next generation. By doing this FTA, we like to reshape our rural community. We like to reorganize our rural sector so that our economy is going to be much more successful, competitive, and viable. Again, everywhere in the world you have this stiff opposition emerging from rural sector against this FTA. But by doing this FTA, job is going to be created more in the States as well as in my country. That is why we believe this is the right thing to do. Currently, I will give you a statistics, and that is that in the case of U.S. market share in Korea, which has been quite dominant in the past, this has been steadily declining recently. It's about 20 percentage point. In the past, it was about 40 percentage point of market share U.S. industry enjoyed in Korea. It's gone down to 20 percentage point as of now. In the case of Korea, our market share in the U.S. was about 8 percentage point in the past. Nowadays, it's about 4.5 percentage point. It's gone down. While Chinese market share has mushroomed, expanded so rapidly from 7-8 percentage point, and currently it's about 15 points of market share for Chinese industry. That's amazing. While Japanese market share stays rather steady. It's about 8 percentage point. Here, we are losing. U.S. has been losing. So we are losing in U.S. market. U.S. has been losing in Korean market, while Chinese has been gaining in the U.S. market. That is why we, South Koreans as well as U.S., believed this FTA is the win-win proposition for our two economies.
Thank you. Up here.
My name is Matthew Aiken, and I'm an astrophysics major. Kind of on a different note, I was wondering what the participation of South Korea is in the international space program?
International Peace Program. International Space Program. Well, that might be a good thing for South Korea to join in the future, but we will have to work on that. I just will say that if Korea would become a party to the space program, that is wonderful for my country. But we are not yet there. So let's work together on that.
In the back. Dark T-shirt on. Isn't there a Korean astronaut?
We have one, but
There's one Korean astronaut.
right.
My name
It's
is
being trained.
Jung-ho Choi. I'm studying electrical engineering. I'm just wondering why Korea need about 25,000 American soldiers to protect our country.
Why do we need 25,000 U.S. troops in Korea? Because we need to defend our country. At this time, we don't believe that we can do it alone. We need our alliance partnership with the United States. Your question is addressed to the level of troops or the reasoning of having these U.S. troops in Korea, which is what?
The level of troops. In Korea, we have about 60,000.
I got you. You know, if you look back, what happened to the U.S. troops levels in the country during the Vietnam War period, we used to have about 72,000 U.S. troops based in Korea. That's gone down to some 50-some, okay, after the Vietnam War, the U.S. troop level gone down. But that was the year when we had quite serious problems with North Korea, late 1960s and early 1970s. Of course, you understand what President Carter had stated while he was campaigning for the presidency. He wanted to withdraw all U.S. troops from South Korea. That was rather quite a significant process, and we had a lot of discussions. And eventually, the U.S. has changed its mind to leave the forces in Korea with a bit of withdrawal. But why do you think the United States president has changed its mind? Because it was needed there, because we had faced with the threat from North Korea. And afterwards, at the end of the Cold War, again, another numbers of troops were withdrawn from Korea. And that's why we maintained this 37,000. If this troop goes down to 25,000, is it good enough for defending South Korea in coordination with South Korean troops, which is in the number of 600,000? Perhaps many people will come up with different answer, but our analysis is that we need quite a significant troop presence on the part of the United States, because this troop presence and our alliance is working as a deterrence capability against North Korean threat. Therefore, whether this troop level is good enough or further drawing down will be needed in the future, that is the question to be discussed and decided at the later stage. But at the moment, this troop level, we accept it as it reflects U.S. interest. But instead, what we are going to do is to strengthen our own war-fighting capabilities in close coordination with the United States as much as possible. So whether a certain number of troop level is appropriate or not, that's subject to discussion. And yet, this current troop level, with the reinforcement measures when something goes awry, this seems to be good enough to maintain security and peace and stability in my country.